Me. I don't think I've ever had anybody talk to me as harshly as Christopher did and hurt me so deeply. When you're married, you can hurt someone very deeply. I think that's one thing I learned from being married. You don't realize how much you can actually hurt. And Christopher, he just would stick that knife in and turn it, and I would just be bleeding everywhere, and he'd go to sleep. So here I am, I'm lying on the floor dying of a wound. I'd have to go into our spare room and just cry out to the Lord, and I mean sob.
Harsh words, attacking phrases, or insulting names can really wound your spouse and break their spirit. And finally, let's look at the third key ingredient in communication: feelings. Justified or unjustified, your feelings during an argument are very real. And there are a lot of ways that we can react to those feelings. Sometimes we clam up, and sometimes we simply refuse to deal with the problem.
He clams up. That's, to me, the worst thing that happens, is just says, okay, forget it. Just can't agree on this, and we're not going to talk about it anymore.
I walk out of the room and let her continue to talk and talk and talk, and I walk back in, and if she's still talking, I walk back out.
Christopher, a lot of times, doesn't want to deal with the problem. He's the type that he will say, you know, let's not talk about it anymore, and we wouldn't have hardly started.
Sometimes our feelings can get out of hand, and when this happens, communication breaks down. The conflict remains unresolved, and our emotions take over.
When conflict gets out of hand, I get upset. I get real angry. I feel hurt. I do feel the hurt. It's like you want to resolve it, but you don't really know why or how to resolve it. Makes you frustrated.
And I probably exacerbate it by getting angry, maybe walking out or yelling.
There's like an underlying anger or something that really causes problems, because when we argue, it's not like we just have an argument. It's like there's a wave of venom under it. There's a real, it's almost an evil thing that's so angry.
During an argument, you can feel resentment, frustration, hate, outrage, bitterness, spite, defiance, stubbornness, or indignation. But regardless of what you call it, what it usually boils down to is anger. You are angry. And uncontrolled anger can be very dangerous. To give us a few tips on how to control anger, how to listen, and how to talk, we've gone to best-selling author Dr. H. Norman Wright. Over 500,000 people have already read his very helpful book, Communication: Key to Your Marriage.
Let me say up front that having a good marriage doesn't mean there are no differences or conflicts, but it does mean that you and your spouse are able to communicate, to talk about the problems, and come to an understanding of each other's views. Let me give you a few practical suggestions, though, on communicating during conflict, because this is a difficult time. The first one is control your anger. Now, some of you may be thinking, Norm, do you know what my husband did? Or do you know what my wife said to me the other night? I've got a right to be angry. That might be true, but let me caution you. Anger creates distance between couples. It doesn't draw you closer together. When you're angry, your self-control is at an all-time low. And common sense, it usually flies out the window. You're then in danger of becoming controlled by your anger. You've been hurt, so you're going to hurt back. And if that's your goal, to unleash a torrent of venomous feelings, to simply get it off your chest, then you will accomplish absolutely nothing in a positive way. But you will create animosity and a distance between the two of you.
We've had arguments where we just were really, really livid with each other. Well, this will never work. You know, we just ought to go our own way.
And when my wife turned away from me in an argument, I would yell or scream or, throw something down, or, I'd throw temper tantrums.
There are times that I get so angry that I can't stop myself from being angry.
The good news is that you do not have to be controlled by your anger. Try following these two steps. First, identify the cause of your anger. It's important to know just what feelings or thoughts have generated your anger. Are you frustrated? Do you feel hurt? Or are you afraid of something? Real or imagined, what has your spouse done or said that has brought you to this point of anger?
Sometimes we just say things that's sort of off the cuff, or it's almost to cover up the way we really feel.
Some disagreements are small ones that we, because of our own feelings that day or being hurt, we blow them out of proportion.
Sometimes when I'm really angry or I feel hurt or taken for granted, I thought, it would be nice to have someone that didn't take me for granted.
There have been times where I thought, oh, gee, what kind of mistake have I made here? I don't want to live with this person for the rest of my life. I want to get out of here.
Those feelings of anger can make you do something you regret. So as hard as it may be, step 2, you must now confess those feelings and thoughts to your spouse. But I'm not talking about yelling or slamming doors or calling your partner names. That only makes matters worse. Instead, without trying to offend your partner, just simply confess exactly how you feel and why.
And I think it's really special to be able to put your cards on the table, have the other person verbalize what their feelings are also, and then just settle it once and for all.
This will help open the lines of communication, and you can calmly attack the problem instead of your partner. That brings us to suggestion number 2. Listen with your mouth shut.
I start interrupting him, and that's what really gets him. I don't let him finish sentences.
So we think that we both have got the right answer. And so the weakness is that we may not value the other person's perspective.
Now, I know this goes against our human nature, because we usually prefer to be the one talking, expressing our ideas, getting our point across. But it's only when you keep your mouth closed that your spouse can finish their thoughts. In the Word of God, in Proverbs 18:13, it says, "He who answers a matter before he hears all the facts, to him it is folly and shame." So don't cut your spouse off in mid-sentence or try to finish their thoughts for them. Suggestion number 3. Not only should you listen with your mouth closed, you should also listen with your mind wide open. For example, when your partner is talking, you shouldn't be thinking about what you're going to say when the other person stops talking. You can't really hear what they're saying if you've got your brain in gear trying to think of a good rebuttal. It's only with an open mind that you can actually tune into not only what your partner is saying, but what they mean.
Sometimes I've already decided what the answer to something is, or how I want to go attack it, or handle the situation.
When she's talking, I don't always listen like I should, because I've got all these other things in my mind that are sort of serving as a filter, and she has to call my attention to the need she has for me to really listen to what she's saying.
Because we got into many an argument by not understanding what the other person was thinking and just being absolutely certain we knew what the other person was thinking, and then we would just butt heads.
Now for suggestion number 4, be careful what you say. Words are like high-speed bullets. Once you pull the trigger, they hit the target before you can even begin to think about taking them back. That's why Proverbs 29:20 says, "Do you see a man who is hasty in his words? There is more hope for a fool than for him." The moment you fire those unkind or cutting remarks at your partner, the damage is done in a split second.
I really meant one thing, and in the anger and the emotion, it came out, and it didn't really come out the way that I intended it for it to. And to this day, if I think about it, I can remember the look on Leroy's face and how it hurt him.
When we have a problem and he will come out and say some unkind things to me, just cut into my character, like, well, why don't you do this all the other wives do, or even actually, call me different names or things that really hurt me. That sometimes he does that in order to get me to stop talking about a problem. He figures, well, if I can just hurt her good enough, I'll wound her and then she won't talk to me.